The studio lights were warmer than usual that morning, but the tension at the table felt ice cold. Clint Eastwood sat calmly in his chair, hands folded, his posture relaxed in a way that only decades of experience could produce. He had been invited to talk about legacy, aging in Hollywood, and the meaning of storytelling in a world that seemed to change its rules every year. The host smiled, the audience applauded, and everything felt routine, until it wasn't. Joy Behar leaned forward, ready with one of her trademark comments, half joking, half challenging. The conversation had drifted toward politics and culture, as it often did, and Clint listened quietly, nodding as others spoke. When his turn came, he didn't raise his voice or roll his eyes. He simply spoke, measured and calm, as if he were talking to an old friend rather than a national audience. He said that Hollywood, in his view, had started confusing noise with meaning. That too many conversations were about winning arguments instead of understanding people. He added that storytelling worked best when it respected the audience's intelligence rather than lecturing them. His words were polite, but they carried weight, and the room seemed to shrink as everyone realized he wasn't just talking about movies. Joy's smile tightened. She interrupted lightly, trying to steer the tone back toward humor, but Clint continued, unfazed. He talked about growing up in a time when people disagreed fiercely yet still shared a table. He said that disagreement didn't require humiliation, and that curiosity mattered more than applause. There was no accusation in his tone, but the implication hung in the air. The audience murmured, unsure whether to clap or stay silent. One of the co-hosts shifted in her seat, glancing between Joy and Clint, sensing that the moment was sliding off script. Joy laughed again, louder this time, and made a quip about old-school thinking, but the laugh didn't quite land. Clint looked at her, not with anger, but with something closer to disappointment. He said, gently, that labeling people was easier than listening to them. That when conversations turned into performances, everyone lost something. The cameras caught Joy's expression change, just for a second, before she masked it with sarcasm. She pushed back, listing examples, turning the exchange sharper. The energy in the studio shifted from playful debate to something heavier. Clint didn't match her pace. He waited until she finished, then responded slowly, choosing his words with care. He said he respected strong opinions, but he believed respect itself had become rare on television. He paused, then added that when discussion turns into constant outrage, it stops being honest. That pause was long enough to be uncomfortable. The producer's voice crackled faintly in the host's earpieces, urging them to move along. But Joy, clearly irritated now, pressed him again, asking whether he thought shows like theirs were part of the problem. Clint didn't dodge the question. He said he thought every platform had a responsibility, especially ones with influence. He said that conversation should invite people in, not push them away. Then came the line that seemed to freeze everything. He said that sometimes the loudest voices weren't the wisest, just the most rewarded. A hush fell over the studio. Even Joy stopped speaking. The camera cut briefly to the audience, faces wide-eyed, then back to the table. Joy's hands tightened around her cue cards. She smiled again, but it was thin, controlled. She made a remark about being rewarded for honesty, but the edge in her voice was impossible to miss. The other hosts attempted to lighten the mood, tossing in jokes, praising Clint's career, but the moment had already etched itself into the show. Clint thanked them politely, adding that he appreciated being able to speak openly, even when it was uncomfortable. He wasn't confrontational. If anything, he seemed calm, almost serene. As the segment wrapped up, applause came, but it was scattered. The camera pulled back, and the show cut to commercial. Off camera, the energy didn't bounce back the way it usually did. Crew members whispered. A producer hurried across the floor. Joy sat stiffly, staring ahead, replaying the exchange in her mind. During the break, Clint stood, shook hands, and thanked everyone again before being escorted off set. He left the studio as quietly as he had entered it, unaware, or perhaps fully aware, of the storm his words had just ignited. When the cameras returned, Joy was still there, but something had shifted. Her jokes felt sharper, her comments more defensive. Viewers at home could sense it too. Social media lit up almost instantly, clips of Clint's remarks spreading faster than the show could control. Joy glanced at the monitor during another break and saw the headlines forming in real time. She'd faced criticism before, plenty of it, but this felt different. It wasn't outrage aimed at her words, it was reflection sparked by his. And that, somehow, felt harder to shake. By the time the episode ended, Joy was exhausted. Not from shouting, but from holding her ground against a calm she couldn't quite penetrate. As she walked off set, applause fading behind her, one thought echoed louder than the studio lights ever could. This conversation wasn't over, and its consequences were only just beginning. The hours after the show felt heavier than Joy expected. She had walked off that set thousands of times before, laughing, joking with producers, already thinking about the next episode. This time, she went straight to her dressing room and closed the door behind her. The silence inside was loud. Her phone buzzed non-stop on the vanity, lighting up with notifications she didn't need to open to understand. Clips of Clint Eastwood's calm remarks were everywhere. Not edited into mockery, not twisted into outrage, just shared as they were. That alone unsettled her. Joy had built a career on fast wit and sharper comebacks, but this wasn't a battle of jokes. It felt like a mirror had been held up, and she wasn't sure she liked what it reflected. Producers knocked gently, asking if she was okay, suggesting talking points for the next day's show. Joy nodded, smiled, said she was fine. She'd done that her whole life. But later that night, at home, she finally watched the segment back. Without the studio noise, without adrenaline, Clint's words landed differently. There was no attack, no insult, just a quiet challenge. The next morning, the headlines were impossible to ignore. Some defended her fiercely, praising her for standing her ground. Others questioned whether the show had lost its ability to listen. What surprised Joy most were the messages from longtime viewers who said they still liked her but felt tired. Tired of constant combat, tired of conversations that felt like performances instead of discussions. At the table that day, Joy tried to shake it off. She cracked jokes, leaned into sarcasm, did what she always did. But even her co-hosts seemed